Welcome to another session. This is part 3 of a series of sessions themed at relationships that men should avoid in order to achieve success, long-term success. My focus is not for all men. My focus is primarily the top 5 to 10% of men, the people who are willing to do whatever it takes to achieve success and who are willing to pay the price for success. Let me start today's session by, recapping on a reference I made in the previous session, part 2. Success is built into everything we do in life. As a matter of fact, the way the universe works is to ensure, as a matter of fact, almost guarantee success. There are laws, there are principles by which things are supposed to function. When applied, when utilized with the right rules, laws, principles, the outcome is predictable. The predictability of the outcome is primarily based on the fact that inherent in design is success. When we go against the principles, when we go against the rules or the norms or the laws, we introduce something opposite to success, failure. For example, if I took 2 parts of hydrogen and I mix 2 parts of hydrogen with 1 part of water, of oxygen, I have a chemical compound we call H2O, water. It's odorless, it's colorless. If I drink it, it will nourish me. The success of that mix and the outcome have an inherent predictability. You don't have to pray, you don't have to sing kumbaya, you don't have to hope, you don't have to, do incantations. You don't have to even meditate. You take 2 parts of hydrogen and you mix 1 part of water, the outcome is predictable. Success. You get water. If I were to alter the composition for whatever reason, I took 2 parts of hydrogen and I mixed those 2 parts of hydrogen with 2 parts of oxygen. I create a different compound to the first, H2O2. We call it hydrogen peroxide. It's very similar to water. It's odorless, similar in terms of having no odor. It's similar in terms of colorless, just like water. But there's a huge difference. If I drink that compound, it will poison me and I could potentially die. I have used the product, hydrogen peroxide, for an activity for which it was not designed. Success was not built into hydrogen peroxide for consumption. It was designed for a different function. Similarly, in relationships, there are relationships that are not supposed to be commingled for a specific and a select group of men. The men in the top 5 to 10% who really aspire to be successful. One of such relationships is dating or being in a relationship or getting married, cohabiting, going into civil partnership, or getting into any form of intimacy long-term, even short-term in my opinion, with a single mother. Now, I should make it very clear. I'm not making a necessarily, in this particular instance, I'm not saying all single mothers are bad. And no one should date, get married to, or be in a relationship with a single mother. I'm simply saying, for young men who are unmarried, who are driven to be successful, and who are single, in making a choice to start a relationship, there are certain rules. I gave you some of them in the first 2 sessions, but I am saying it would be the same as you being a good omelette, or trying to make an omelette, you being a good egg, mixing yourself with a bad egg. It doesn't matter how many more eggs you put in the bad egg to make an omelette. The outcome is predictable. If you haven't tried this before, pick up a rotten egg and make an omelette and mix it with a good egg. The outcome is a rotten egg. I'm not saying single mothers are bad people. I'm not even saying that the children born to single mothers are bad people. I am saying The mix of the two compounds, the mix of the two personalities and identities, the mix of a driven, successful career path, the mix of a goal, purpose, with someone who has, for all intents and purposes, some level of baggage. Mixing that with your dreams and goals is bound to end very badly, in general. I didn't say all. All simply means 100%. The majority of the cases, you only need 50.1%. And for majority of the cases, it always ends badly. But the first question I want to start today's session with is a concept called return on investment. I alluded to this in the session I did yesterday. What is the return on investment of a young man? And let's assume this man is between 18 years and 35, the age in question that I focus on. What is the return on investment for such a said man to go into a relationship with a woman who has a child from another man and is a single mother, or put it more straightforwardly, a baby mama, a woman who has one child, two children from one man or multiple men? What is the benefit? Cui bono? My position is a simple one. Avoid such relationships. As a matter of fact, I make it very clear that generally speaking, in 80% of the circumstances, even relationships by men between 18 and 35, if those relationships begin and it's a mono relationship, intimacy involved, and there is commitment and dedication of any sort between 18 and 35, that relationship has an 80% chance of sabotaging your dream. Relationships will kill your dreams, especially the relationships at the wrong time. They could be the right relationships, but at the wrong time. A man needs what I call the preparation stage of life to come into his manhood and masculinity and to be ready for the responsibility of husband or father. 35 is when I start to recommend that men start to take that step. Prior to 35 and prior to 30 certainly is usually a very bad deal. We do not mature, especially in the West. We do not mature as fast as we used to. We've lost a sense of purpose and meaning, and therefore most men are still boys below 35, and certainly below 30. Now, the question is, what is your return on investment? Your return on investment in time, your return on investment in resources, your return on investment in cost, relationship cost, your return on investment in opportunity cost, and finally, your return on investment in purpose. That's a very important question that you have to answer. In the session I covered yesterday, I made it very clear. I used an example, and I said, usually a single man dating a woman who has children, your return on investment in time is not equal and it's not fair. You're committing 100% of your time, and at best, you might be getting 33% of her time if she has just one child. Why? She has to take care of herself, she has to work, and then she has the child. So you're sharing her with 3, sometimes 4, all the time commitment, which means it's an unfair and an unbalanced deal. If she has more kids, 2 or more, that number drops significantly, sometimes below 25% and sometimes below 20%. If I was arguing the same position for women, I would say the same thing, which is your return on investment in time is not equal, is not fair, and there shouldn't be a value exchange. If a man said to a woman, well, you can be committed to me, but you only get to see me for 25%, or you get to spend time with me for 25% of the entire year. The rest of the year, I'm sorry, I'm committed to something else. I would say to such a woman, well, maybe that man belongs to another woman, because you as a woman, you deserve more and you deserve better. Similarly, for young men, especially young men who are starting out and looking for a helpmeet, your return on investment in time is not equal, it's not fair, and there should not be a value exchange. What is your return on investment in relationship costs? Well, generally speaking, you will be the one funding the relationship. And therefore, you're not just spending money for one person or two people, you're also paying for another man's child. And the responsibility, financial and otherwise, that comes with having to look after another person's seed. It's not fair, it's not equal. What is the return on investment in resources? Well, think about it this way. If you consider yourself to be a hunter-gatherer, you have to go into the wilderness, go into the wild, and hunt game. Now you have 3 or 4 mouths to feed, not just one. Yourself, the woman, her offsprings or offspring. That requires more resources. If you have to provide shelter, it requires a larger space. If you need to provide a car to go between A and B, you need the right type of car and a bigger car. You can't just simply have the 2-seater. Your lifestyle has to change. And all those changes are being made for a seed that is not yours. It's not fair, it's not equal. The value exchange proposition should not be accepted by yourself. What is the return on investment based on opportunity cost? Opportunities that you forego. In other words, to choose a single mother for a relationship, you have overlooked women who were single and unmarried, and who were just as fertile, who have a high sexual marketplace value, just as attractive, just as, you might say, well groomed and trained. And in effect, the opportunity cost are all the other women that could have been more fitting to you and your purpose and your dream. It's not equal, it's not fair. The value exchange proposition should be avoided. And finally, and importantly, what is the return on investment on your purpose? Now, this is huge. At 35, should you decide to get married? Now, recognize that I make it clear that there is very little, in my opinion, in the West, no benefit to modern men to be married. I understand that there is a benefit to a child being born within the institution of a marriage, but there is nothing you can gain in marriage that you cannot get outside of marriage. Women are not coming to the table with purity. They're not virgins. They're not coming to the table with some level of chastity. They're not coming to the table looking to get married young. They're not coming to the table well-groomed and trained to be wise, with femininity. They're coming with everything opposite to what women of old used to bring to the table. So there are no advantages within the marriage framework in modern society that would necessitate that you commit yourself as a man to marriage when you can get the same benefits outside and without being married and without the responsibility of marriage. So the first 2 questions to ask yourself if you are a man is, if you've decided that you want to date someone who is a single mother or baby mother, first question, was marriage made a necessity before she conceived for the other man? If the answer is no, then my recommendation to you would be walk away. Number 2, was she married at the time the baby was born? Similarly, if the answer is no, I think you should walk away. Number 3, this is a question to you. Are you ready to be a stepfather? Now, I know there is what I call a superhero syndrome amongst most young men these days. Many of us were raised without fathers, and so it comes natural to us to think, well, his father isn't available, I'll be a good father to him, without thinking about the unintended consequences of that decision. Most women who are baby mamas or single mothers are not looking for husbands, lovers. They're looking for stepfathers first. Their priority is the children, and so it should be. But they're looking for stepfathers, and then secondly, a companion. But their motivation is security, stability, structure, and most importantly, someone as a role model for the child. Now, irrespective of what the woman says, the boy or the son or the daughter's father might be available, might be in their lives, but in reality, the moment you come into union with that woman, you become a stepfather. So you're wearing two hats. You're auditioning to be a stepfather, and at the same time auditioning to be a lover who will not get the same return on investment in time, resources, relationship costs, opportunity costs, or even purpose. When you become a father, in the majority of the cases, especially if you become a father prior to 35, and certainly prior to 30, you tend to let go of your purpose, your dreams and your goals, because there's a responsibility that you must take on board. Fatherhood requires the sacrifice of yourself for the child, because children do not ask to be brought into the world, and rightly so. At the moment a child is born, the focus should be about making that child into what he or she should be. Your focus should go away from what you were pursuing relentlessly to the child, which is partly why my recommendation is to wait until 35 before you have a child, for men in the West. The reason being so you could have had the opportunity to have succeeded in something. You have a sense of your self-concept and self-identity and self-worth, to have pursued your dreams and goals and that purpose and that calling you might have or passion you have, to have failed in life. Failure is the pathway to developing manhood. If you have not done any of that and you have a child, you have to, as part of your responsibility, put the child first, which would mean your purpose is tossed out of the window, at least until the child turns 18. Dating single mothers or baby mamas is a liability. In the West today, there is no honor in masculinity. There is no honor in manhood. There is no honor in fatherhood. There is also no honor, I have to say, in being stepfathers. If we go back prior to the liberal movement, let's say prior to the 60s, in the West, irrespective of where you were in the world, a man who stepped forward to take on the responsibility for another man's child was praised by the community, because people understood the responsibility, the sacrifice, and the lack of return on investment. And men who did so were seen as honorable. Since the 1960s, we've destroyed everything that was good about masculinity and manhood. So today, there is no honor in being a stepfather. There is no joy, despite what might seem in the interim as a good decision. Over the long term, when you discount, there is no joy in fatherhood. The young ones are being raised to be appallingly ungrateful. I see two qualities in most young people these days: arrogance and ignorance, a cocktail that, when mixed, creates a lethal experience for people who are close and people who are far away. Children are being raised in such a way that there is no honor given to fathers. It's natural, and it comes natural to a child to seek their source. Where have I come from? Who is my father? And stepfathers are often seen as though they are the ones responsible for their fathers not being present in the family. You were the reason why mum did not stay with my father. You're never given the benefit of the doubt. Sometimes it takes 10, 15 years for the chicken to come home to roost. Now, I would also say, in this day and age, especially as a man, dating a woman who has a female daughter, in this day and age, when people have become so malicious, all she has to do is get to 11 or 12 and make a claim that there was some behavior on your part, especially if it's not true, but there's been some behavior on your part, either by your visuals or by your actions. You touched her, you looked at her in a certain way, and suddenly your life could be destroyed. A woman's instinct is to side with her offspring. It's her blood. She understands and knows it's hers. You're just a stranger. You're just another man she chose. Coupled with the fact that 50% of divorces these days have come in relationships that last no more than 6 to 7 years. 5 is becoming the norm. So in 1 in 2 relationships, one will end in divorce within the first 7 years. In 7 out of 10 times, the person who files for divorce or for separation is the woman. In the remaining 30%, or 3 in 10, she asks for the separation. So 85% of the time, the woman is the one walking away. Now here is perhaps where it gets really painful. In 9 out of 10 cases, the family courts will side with the woman with regards to custodial responsibility. In only 1 out of 10 will the man have the opportunity to have 50-50 parenting with the child. You have to fight very hard to have equal rights to see your children. The family court systems in the country, in the UK, is appalling. That is a child that is yours, that is legally yours, that is biologically yours. When you date a single mother or baby mama with a child from another man, if there is a separation in the relationship, despite the fact that you forged and built this bond with the child, she can walk away and she has the full legal claim because you have no claim on the child. It's not your seed. She can simply say, well, it's not your child. So not only do you lose the family you started, you also lose the son or the daughter that you've come to love. In addition to that, if she is leaving out of spite, she can really destroy your life as she walks out the door. She can make a claim. You see, it's harder for someone to be accused of sexually molesting his own daughter or son. It's harder compared to someone who is a stepfather. In the first instance, we say incest. But people usually stop on pause and say, is this true? Because this is your seed, this is your daughter. When you're a stepfather, there's a few degrees of separation. People can say, well, it's not really his daughter. He may have done so. And so the liabilities associated with dating a single mother or baby mama is way too high, extremely high. You don't have the issue about children who grew up to be very disloyal, who are dissenting, both in their attitude and manners and their temperament. There's usually a clash of a vision, especially if the children's father are still alive. They have a vision for how the children should behave. And here you are trying to set the rules of the game in your space, in your domain, in your Garden of Eden. And there's a third voice, another man's voice, that has been given to the child with authority to go against what you want or what you say. There is no honor in being a stepfather. You will never be a father. Now, I know in some instances, there are examples of relationships that really worked. Great. There's an exception to the rule. I know in some instances, the stepfather adopts the children. Great. There's exceptions to the rule. I know in some instances, the original biological father perhaps is no longer alive. I'm not speaking about such. Or doesn't want to be in the lives of those children. Exceptions to the rule. I'm specifically referring to where, for whatever reason, the rug can be pulled from under you at any time. So what you have as a man joining in union with a woman who is a single mother or baby mama is all of the responsibilities, financial, emotional, societal, social, even sometimes extending beyond that. But none of what would normally come as an emotional reward, a return on your invested time, capital, resources, a sacrifice of your purpose, the opportunity cost foregone. When you compile all of what I've shared so far, what you tend to see, if you think about this objectively, and especially let me speak to women, some of you who have children, ask yourself the same question. If you had a son, and your son had been a very, very good student all of his life, got to 18, didn't get into trouble, went to college, did exceptionally well, graduated with distinction with serious opportunities ahead of him, was scouted by perhaps one of the top firms in the UK, in the country, and started working, focused on his work, worked hard, became a millionaire, financially independent, and at 35, 34, he said, Mum, I think I'm ready. Would you say to that son of yours, who you've seen delayed gratification, stick to the boundaries that you had set as a mother, kept the character of the family, worked hard, sacrificed, was dedicated, would you be happy if he came back and said to you, well, Mum, I've met this girl and she has 2 children from 2 different men, and I want to get married to her? I would hope that you would say, son, your feelings are deceiving you. You may love her, but she's not for you. Please find someone else and start and build your own family unit, because you deserve to have a good return on your investment for all of the sacrifices you made for all those years. That is the same position I take in this part 3 of relationships men should avoid. The woman may be a perfectly lovely woman. The children may be perfectly lovely children. But on a balance of probabilities, if you mix rotten egg with good egg to make an omelette, you will get rotten omelette. So on the balance of probabilities, a man who is successful, driven, ambitious, goal-oriented, when he mixes and he chooses to pair bond with a woman who has come with a preformed family from multiple men, that is a bad deal. It's not about the individuals, it's about the outcomes. It will be the same as mixing 2 parts of hydrogen with 2 parts of oxygen and drinking it and assuming it's 2 parts of hydrogen with 1 part of oxygen. That is a bad deal. Now, in the sessions to follow, I will talk about exceptions. Yes, there are opportunities and times when some men can choose to step into that position. I will provide a few examples of where those exceptions can be entertained. But this applies, just so you can understand, for much older men, not younger men. I'm speaking specifically to younger men who have a life ahead of them and who are in the prime of their pursuit and sowing years and trying to ensure that they're able to reap as much as they have sown. Now, I hope today's session has been of some value.